Hello everyone, my name is Ashton and welcome back to my cozy corner of YouTube. Today we're doing something quite different than we usually do because today we are not just doing a draw with me, we are doing a journal type video. So yes, the idea of this video is that it's going to be a complete beginner's guide. It's going to be 3-part, so the first part of the video is going to be just my setup and how I do things, and then some advice / ideas. And then finally, you're going to get some of my subjective benefits, like the reasons I like to journal. And that is actually going to be a voiceover with some actual drawing in the journal and setting up for today's page. So getting into it, I actually have this page full of the talking points I wanted to talk about. Very messily written, as well as some page numbers that I'm willing to show off. So let's just try to figure this out as we go. So the story behind this journal is that I actually journaled all through high school, but took a break for my first 2 years of university because, yeah, it just became my main focus and I was still trying to figure out how to manage my time. But over this summer, I was just sort of realizing how I'm already forgetting things that happened to me in first year. So my journals are kind of everything journals where my version of memorabilia is just completely listing off the interesting things that are going on, but in all sorts of different ways, and I'll get into that later. All to say though, I have quite a bit of experience journaling, but it felt like I had to relearn a system that worked for me now, so it kind of felt like a factory reset where I was going back to a super beginner because I had to get back into the habit. Yeah, that's why I think this video will be helpful for that. Anyways, getting into the actual materials, you'll learn very quickly that I'm not a pro at this because I don't even know what brand of journal this is. So it was a gift to me, and that's why. I'm also usually very, very good at keeping, oh my goodness, cat hair. I'm also usually very, very good at keeping business cards of the small artists I get my stickers from. I got this sticker at Toronto Pride. But when I tell you guys, I also got my friend other art products from this artist, and the artist only gave me one business card, so I gave it to the friend in case they wanted more stuff, and now I don't know what the @ of the person is. So yes, that really frustrates me because usually I'm very good with that stuff, so please forgive me. Moving on. So it is, I think, 315 pages. It is, let me just open up to a random page in the middle. It's a dotted notebook, and I'll talk about why I like that in a bit. It has one of those envelopes in the back, and it also has a little table of contents here. So yeah. Alright, and then the things I actually use in the book. We've got some stencil sheets, just 2 washi tapes, a mild liner, and just some pen, I stole this from my mom. I think keeping your amount of materials small in the beginning is a good idea because it's less overwhelming that way. This definitely won't be an art journal with just these few. Well, I guess you could. If you're someone who likes to sketch with pen, you could totally do it that way, but yes, keeping it small at first. I also think this is budget friendly if you're not sure you're going to be able to get into the hobby right away. Just a more cost-effective way to get started, build the habit, and then you could buy more supplies later. And I think this is just the right amount to actually make it look really nice in there. So anyways, getting into how I set things up. I feel like Spidey's gonna be in the way. Yeah. Let's get him out of the way for a bit. There we go. Alright, so yes. Cover pages, because a lot of people like to do cover pages. This is mine. You can see I literally only started this July 8th, but I have been successfully writing in it every day since, and really like what I'm doing so far. So, but yes, I think that if you do want to do a cover page and are as anxious as I am about these sorts of things, I try not to draw on my first page because I get a little too anxious of how it'll turn out, but I still want it to look very good and artsy. So I do tend to do collage type things for my cover page. I think that's a good workaround for that, especially because if you get too intimidated to start, obviously you won't start. So, but yes, these are some flowers I pressed last summer, and then I just use like a vinyl kind of like sticker thing over top. And I did pick these, but these are all, especially the lily of the valley, they're all either really aggressive or invasive to my area, so that's why I picked them. Yeah. The next thing I'm going to go over in this journal are the icons I decided to use. So you could make these without a stencil, but I have these like as part of my stencil sheet. Also, yeah, I'm going to be awkwardly like censoring certain parts of my pages with the paper I'm using for my script. So I'll give you guys a little close-up. There's obviously school-related, YouTube/creative hobbies, my time with nature/environmentalism, because I do some volunteering as well as like trying to make sure I go outside for my walks, social life and family, fitness stuff, and just tracking that, food/cooking journey, money-related stuff, work-related stuff, just general proud moments, which I think is a good thing to track, especially if you have, well, whether you have like mental stuff or not, or like, you know, just like a good reminder of major points for yourself and like reminding yourself with these two, I guess, the sort of things you've overcome. And then, yes, mental health struggles and work, and then physical health updates and appointments. I'll get into how I use all of those in my actual book properly in a bit when I go over my advice section. Another thing I tend to do is track the weather. I think it's just a nice way to start actually writing and like getting the first thing down on the page. I also do this for like mental health stuff. If I could see that it kind of like correlates with the weather and gloomy days and da 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 da. It's like a good way of being able to tell just how much that does end up affecting me. So that is one of the reasons why I do that. One thing I will say as well is I tend to write as if I'm writing to someone else, and that is because I kind of am. I am writing to my future self mostly, and I guess you could kind of like, I don't know, it's weird that, you know, if you want to read it, you can, but yeah, I think there's just something to say about talking to your future self or your future family that makes it a lot easier to write, because it kind of feels like in a letter format, and I'll also talk a bit about like the personal benefits to me of that later. And yeah, the last thing I will say is I like having dotted notebooks. I find that I could keep my handwriting fairly contained for that to work. And I like the dotted a lot because I feel like it doesn't confine me to a certain format. Like I'm able to put my icons about without it really getting in the way of that and so on. So that's just like my preference and why I like the dots. All right, so getting straight into this advice section, I'm just going to list off, because I'm sure you guys actually want to see my journal, so I'm just going to list off some of the things you could add, some ideas you could add, and know that all of these I have done before and also work for me, but I might not show you all of that just because a lot of it's personal, but I do have a few pages that I could show you. But yeah, this all helps me, especially because I know sometimes you don't really know what to write about, or sometimes you feel that your day wasn't all that interesting. First one is having a song of the day. I don't do this every day, but if there's a song I particularly want to reflect on, it's a nice thing to just decide to write about or even just write down. You have contacts and addresses, and this could also be your own addresses as well. This is a way to just like remember, you know, if you've moved recently, just remembering the old place, da da da. Recipes and meal planning. You got your media or quotes, school or work updates. You could draw in here. There's like only one drawing so far, and I'm going to add more today. You've got, if you do happen to have other journals, you could put a reflection on your past journals in this new journal. You could do a symptom or mood tracker, or like also tracking the weather like I do. You could put down to your dreams in here, because I do like to reflect on my dreams. I think there's a big part of it that can be, you know, your subconscious telling you things that you need to work on, or, you know, things that you didn't really realize were underlying stuff, you know? So I like to reflect on my dreams in my journals sometimes. And then, of course, you got your to-do/planning, and there is a sort of caveat to this, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But for now, I'll show you some of my example pages. Okay, so now that I'm on this first page, I realize I didn't explain my washi tapes very well at all. So for me, they actually mark the end of a day. I like doing it this way just because it doesn't confine me to just one page for a day, like feeling I have to write a whole page and / or feeling like I can't go over a page. So this is like my actual breaking point for the day. And they're also going to correlate with the season. So this was kind of my July color. I end up losing one and then running out of one. So I end up switching to the August color early, but that's okay. Mostly I kind of want these to correlate with the season as well as the mild liner color. Like as I get into fall, I have a more brown color for the mild liner, and then winter is more blue, and then spring's gonna be more green. So it'll be cool to see like the passage of seasons. But yes, this is an example of having a song of the day. This is kind of a more romantic type song, and obviously I did some reflection on it before. That's private, so you know. And then this is a good like example of how even like the small things, just like things that stick out in your day, you could write down. You don't have to write your full day, especially if you feel like it was kind of boring, you know, just like the small things that had you reflecting or things that you want yourself to remember in the future. And then this last one is an example of, you know, I guess kind of dream tracking, just deciding to write it down. And then I like complete my retelling of the dream and the reflection over here that you guys don't have to see because it was a nightmare. But this is an example, and I kind of section it off with these types of lines just to show that this is like a different train of thought than my usual writing. And I think this is very useful to just like, yeah, partition out your thoughts, I guess. Yeah, so that's the example for that. I'm showing this page because it gives context to the next page, especially if you are liking reading what I'm writing. I'm not that good of a writer, so, and I guess that's part of it. Like, you don't have to be, that it's not going to be amazing writing skills, especially with all my spelling mistakes. But yeah, so this is kind of a funny story that goes into a bit of a nerd out session. So I'll show you on the next page. This page is a good example of school updates / just talking about what I've been learning, and then also food stuff. So yeah, I do, if I particularly like what I'm learning, I'll have a bit of what I call a nerd out session where I just talk about it, why I found it interesting or why I can't stop thinking about it. Especially because this in particular is psychology, but it does talk about biology a little bit. I'm a biology person. My family is not, they're not super sciencey. They have a hard time understanding that stuff. So I usually don't have someone to kind of nerd out with. This is a beef stew that I actually drew on this channel, so if you want to go see that video, it's up. But this is just something I cooked with my mom. Oh my god, cat hair everywhere. And I think this is a nice thing to write out, because again, this is my version of memorabilia. Being able to look back and see what I was doing at the time, and as a way to remember like time I spent with like a family member, you know? Like, I think that's really special. And one of the main reasons I want to mention it and show it off. I'm sorry, I keep covering the page while you're probably trying to read stuff, but that is something you could do. If I like fully show this, I'm pretty sure just because of course titles, I'll like box myself and where I go to school. But this is kind of the vibe of what I did was I, you know, had a nice little tag for each year that I've been in school. And then also the classes I'm registered in for third year. Yeah, I don't know, the course title looked great. I got on them. Super cool. So this is an example of meal tracking or meal planning, or I don't know. It's just me on my picky eating recovery journey. So this is kind of like a point system I've started implementing when I'm trying new food, because I'm trying to get good snack foods, healthy snack foods going into university, especially because I'm trying to prepare my body for healing from a surgery. So yeah, this is just me like trying things out, just like what I want to say about them. And this is my ranking system. Feel free to copy it. I mean, I don't feel that attached to it. So if this is something you realize you want to do, go for it. Again, more food stuff, ideas for snacks I want to try while at school. Pretty self-explanatory. I'm sorry there's so much food stuff. This is just like things I'm comfortable sharing, so. So this is an example of, and I only recently started doing this, using this as a symptom tracker, which is a lot easier to do because of my little icon symbols. So it's easier to just like flip through, see that, and then be able to like find where I'm tracking symptoms quickly. So I do have chronic back pain, and I'm still seeking out a proper diagnosis for it, which is why tracking symptoms is so important right now. I don't mind if you guys see this stuff. I'm like, it's not too private. this is also a good example of just like laying out timelines or to-dos. This was right before my exam, so this obviously needs a lot more art supplies than just like the basic stuff I've shown you guys so far. But if you are an artsy person, feel free to just like put it in here. I was feeling inspired after a YouTube video I filmed, because this is, if you don't know, kind of on the theme of my last video. Why not, right? Just another way to fill your journal. Okay, I'm gonna be finishing up this advice section with just a few more things. One of those things was just a reminder that, and I didn't show you my to-dos because a lot of them are like a little bit more personal, but with the to-dos / planning for the way that I do my journal of just like a chronological, like, sorry, my cats are upstairs being noisy, but it's like a chronological spew of just all of the things in like a linear fashion just to get down so like my future self could read rather than being easily accessible for planning. So I will say sometimes like your to-dos and planning can get lost in the sauce if you do it my way. Like you have to flip through some of your daily pages in order to get to the to-do that you wrote at the beginning of the week for yourself. So on the topic of planning and to-dos, I wanted to contrast it with my very like messy planner that I use during the school year. That kind of has a bit of everything, but every day has like a to-do. I also do my budgeting in here and also just like general like notes, reminders for myself, in a place where I can be as messy as I want to be, and it's uggo, but it works really well. But yeah, just like really all over the place scheduling. The other thing is that even within your journals, I know it's harder to put into practice than to say as a perfectionist myself, but just, you know, you don't have to have the nice handwriting to start a journal. It's for you, you know, and like you don't have to worry about making mistakes. You don't have to worry about misspelling something. Ultimately, just like, I know my reminder when I get uninspired because I'm making mistakes and things, it's just like, it's just how special it is and will be to my future self to be able to come back to read it and to see how far I've come. The other thing is, if you are trying to be cost effective, then I extra recommend my stencil idea to you. It's like a one-time purchase versus like, I know that a lot of other people who journal will have a bunch of stickers and things. So that's my way of kind of getting that look without having to spend money, you know? And the last thing, I think I already mentioned that kind of like, you don't have to try to write out your entire day, and just like the small things, you know, that you'd like to look back on. Actually, one last thing in terms of advice that I forgot to write down, and this comes with like reflecting on big emotions or big life events, because there's like really important benefits to that, right? And I'll talk about that later in my voiceover while I'm setting up my next page. But I know it could be really hard to write things down physically when you know that now that it's on paper, and you know, if someone else were to find that, then that could be very vulnerable if you don't feel comfortable having it out somewhere, right? There's two things I've done in the past to kind of help me with this and still be able to write it down. One, obviously, is doing it electronically and then just being able to delete it afterwards. Like, honestly, as long as you've kind of put it out there somewhere that's not on you, or being able to see it and reflect on it, it has similar benefits even if you delete it afterwards, right? The other thing I've done in the past is, you know, most of my immediate people in my surroundings don't speak French very well, and I do. So I've written things out in French so that they wouldn't be able to read it. So it's kind of like, if you happen to be in that situation, that's something you could do as well. All right, let's finally get into setting up the page for today and transferring you over to the voiceover. So the first is that it's very good practice for stress management. It's a stress management technique called reframing, and pretty much journaling is a way to apply this reframing strategy, more specifically stress inoculation training, pretty much, which is just helping to develop positive ways about thinking about, you know, just situations you're going through, right? So studies have shown that journaling and expressive writing is like positively correlated with higher grades and better immune response, actually, in college-age students. So, and personally, somewhat related, I guess, it helps me not ruminate or spiral on things, just kind of putting it somewhere out and not in me anymore. And usually seeing kind of the worry or issue I'm having on paper, it looks a lot smaller. Like it could be like summed up in a good 3 sentences and doesn't even take up a whole page or whatever. You realize how not how like small should like you're not invalidating your own feelings, but you know how you've listed off this worry on paper. It makes you see that it's a lot smaller than how big you've made it in your head. So that's sort of one of the things I get out of that. Another thing is like, and why I recommend talking to your future self is that it helps me quell like my existential anxieties and relieves myself from worries by kind of placing it on my future self in a way and just like putting it down here. It helps me cope with things out of my control pretty much. And it's also very special to, I think, leave space in your journal literally for your future self to write, maybe answer a question you have or provide their thoughts on something. I find that very helpful, and that's how I actually use my table of contents in this notebook. I didn't show you the first page because it's kind of personal, but I'll just say a page number and then sort of the topic of the page. And the table of contents is for my future self to be able to just like quickly go to the places where I wanted an annotation or I wanted feedback on something, kind of come full circle and process everything properly. So yeah, those are some of the benefits I get, at least. I know this isn't my usual kind of video, but I hope you guys liked it. Curious about whether you guys want me to do more. I hope you guys enjoyed me preparing this spread. Thank you guys for watching all the way to the end. It truly means so much to me. I know this isn't my usual content, but I do hope to add here and there to this series amidst all of my usual drawing content, because I really like this. I found this very fulfilling. Let me know if anything I said helped out. Add your suggestions for other people in the comments as well. That would be so lovely. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked the vibes. I post every Wednesday and Friday with an extra short on Monday. So I'll see you guys next week on Wednesday. Bye.